So, hey guys, welcome MagMod community to our October edition of How I Shot It with Charmi Patel Pena. She's an amazing photographer out of Jersey. Is that right?
Yep.
Jersey. And on top of being an amazing photographer, she's a dear friend. So I'm super excited to get to pick her brain a little bit today and hear about how she created some of these amazing images she's going to share with us. So thank you, Charmi, for being with us today and having a little time out to share your knowledge and experience with our members. I think they're going to get a lot out of it. So
I'm
so tell us a
super.
little bit about yourself.
Um, I have been shooting for 10 years. I never meant to shoot Indian weddings, but I ended up kind of specializing in them. And I shoot somewhere between 25 and 30 a year, although I'm going to cut down next year. Um, and yeah,
Mama, can you get me a cup?
this is my son.
Can you get me a cup?
You have to get yourself a cup. Remember how we said you can't bother me right now? Thanks.
He's super
They
cute.
waited till we went live to do that.
Of course, they always do. They know. They know when mom can't be disturbed, and that's when they would disturb us.
It was a full radar. They weren't here for like 30 minutes.
That's hilarious.
Sorry. Yeah, and I'm in New Jersey. I still travel a fair amount for weddings. I just did a wedding in Aruba, which is really fun. And that's it. I shoot Nikon.
Awesome. So you shoot Nikon. Oh, horrible. I could switch you over to Canon. Tell us a little bit about Indian weddings and how and why you decided to specialize in Indian weddings, and maybe talk about a little bit how are there different are there different longer? So 20 to 30 seems like a lot, especially my understanding is they're multi-day events most of the time, or
almost all of mine are, I would say like 60% these days are at least 2 days. Get it yourself. Go get your brother and ask him to do it for you. Thank you. I shoot multi-day weddings, and then that is my life when I'm home. So I get a lot done, guys. Most of my weddings are Indian weddings, and they do have like a sangeet the night before. They'll have a religious ceremony sometimes the day before. Some people lately have been splitting up their wedding and receptions because they are so long. So Aruba, for example, they had their wedding on Saturday and they had their reception completely separately on Sunday, which allowed me some time for recovery. But my normal day could start as early as 6 a.m. I do tell people that they probably don't want me to start when the sun is not even out yet, because those getting ready photos just won't have the same feeling as,
right.
Yeah. And then I usually stay till 10 or 11. Yeah. It's a long day.
Those are long days. So talk a little bit about the reasoning you kind of decided to specialize in Indian weddings. I mean, I'm sure you still do other weddings as well, but I'm sure the majority of your weddings are pretty much Indian weddings. Is that correct?
Yes. So at first it wasn't very intentional. At first it was just kind of what came my way. But Indian weddings, obviously I know them really well. That's who I am. But there's a color and an emotion and just like a joy that I really am attracted to in Indian weddings. That it's not to say that other weddings don't have that, but I'm just super attracted to the way that it's executed within an Indian wedding. And yeah, they're really exhausting long days, and I really love them anyway.
That's awesome. Do you find, from having shot both traditional weddings and then specifically Indian weddings, do you find there's certain types of shots that the Indian weddings require or want you to get, or that you're specialized, if they come to you specifically for, that say, hey, Charmi, she does these shots and this is what we want? Do you find that more often, or is it about the same?
So I will say that the non-Indian wedding people who hire me want me to shoot their wedding the way I shoot an Indian wedding. So there's that. Something that's been super popular lately, which we're actually going to talk about, it's one of the images, is I almost always will do a bridal party composite that's like very dramatic, a little Bollywood feeling.
Awesome.
And that, I would say, almost every couple is like, so what time of day would you like us to put aside for that? So it's almost always like, they expect it. They see that it's in almost every gallery that I send them, and it's on my website and my Instagram, and they want it. The good thing is they know they need to.
That's awesome. And now that image that you're talking about, it's fantastic. Guys, can't wait for you to see it. It's super legit image. So talk to me a little bit about how MagMod has helped you create that particular image that people are requesting, and just your workflow in general, how it's helped either speed it up or allowed you creative flexibility. So talk a little bit about that, and then also which are the products that you use on a regular basis and why you like to use those to create your images.
So I think that I started as a natural light photographer. I mean, I always used a flash, obviously, because you have no choice. Receptions are dark. But when I finally got comfortable with off-camera flash, I still wasn't I found gels and rubber bands really cumbersome. And so I didn't really do anything too creative with off-camera flash beyond just getting what I needed from a logistical sense, for first dance and speeches and whatever. But when MagMod came out, I had a super quick way to play. And because you always have ideas, right? Like you look around and you're like, oh my God, I could do so many cool things, but your couple does not have 20 minutes for you to, reband and find the paper and the plastic in between. Yeah, like there's no time for that. So, and of course you could prepare beforehand, but the weddings I shoot, there's really not a lot of downtime for me to be like, I have this idea and why don't we spend 10 minutes prepping for it, later when we have time, because there is no later when we have time. So having MagMod, the other thing, and this is going to sound almost childish, so prepare yourself. But the other thing is that when I didn't have MagMods and I didn't really like other grid products, I was always frustrated at myself that I couldn't control my spill. It's like, why is it everywhere? I don't want it to be everywhere. But I didn't like other grid products. And so I just avoided taking pictures like that. And I kept things simpler than they needed to be. And then MagMods happen. And all of a sudden, I can quickly execute fun ideas without, fumbling in my bag.
Right.
Do what I want really fast. And I would say I almost always am using a grid. I really like being able to control my light. So I almost always have one or two grids right next to me. Or on my assistant. That would be more honest. And I really love the sphere. I like that. I've been asked before why I use the grid and the sphere together, because people assume that they negate each other, and they don't. It's not like a grid and a sphere are exactly the same, and like they're not opposite. So I really like being able to control my light and then soften it and kind of still spread it a little bit, but not.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
it's great that you touch on that. We just had a question in the community in regards to that specific question of why do people use the grid with the sphere? And I'm the same way. That's probably my favorite combination, is because the grid's going to narrow that beam, but the sphere still gives you those soft kind of fall off and edges, but still puts the light right where you want it, instead of having those hard edges the grid is going to give you. So it's great. It's an awesome. And I think we're going to see some wonderful examples here.
Yeah, there's some in there.
Jump into that. So cool. So let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen real quick and make sure we got the images up, and you can see Lightroom. Is that right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. So love this image. Talk to us a little bit about this. Tell us kind of what were your thought process? Was this the first thing you created, or was this kind of an experiment after you got the safe shot? And talk a little bit about why you decided to try this and what went through your mind, and what did you see to say, hey, I think I can create this, and kind of talk ourselves through that process.
So this was the first thing that I created. It was on purpose, because the venue is called the Grove in New Jersey. And what you see behind them, you can't tell, which is good. That's a driveway. It's an active driveway. And so there were guests getting in cars and leaving. And so there's a fountain in front of the driveway. And there's some lights, but you know, was I to just shoot in front of the venue and not do any drag, you would have seen people or cars, or it would have looked like I took a picture of people in front of a building and that your mom could have taken it. And so there was nothing exciting about it. And so immediately I knew I didn't want I wanted to show the venue, but I didn't want to show the venue as it was.
Right.
There was enough light that I could use it for something else. And so I almost always have my flashes set to rear sync. And we looked at this earlier. I think my shutter speed was 1/15 of a second, and I just dragged upwards when I took it, and that was it. Like it was that simple. But this was just a bare flash. Bare flash with a grid. There was no sphere on it.
Nice.
Yeah, this was just one grid.
So the grid allowed you to really focus the light right on the couple and not spill off either onto the sides or even onto the back a little bit, you know, where you wanted the fountain that you wanted to drag that into. Which is awesome.
I didn't want the fountain to be like diluted. Like I needed it to stay green.
Definitely. So this is a great example of the grid. I love the fact that you were able to use a grid to focus the light, but also knowing that you want to get rid of that distracting background. So using other creative properties like dragging the shutter and kind of shaking the camera a little bit to create that blur, to hide the distractions, but then hitting them with a flash on that second curtain sync right where you wanted to kind of freeze them and keep them nice and clear and crisp in the image, which is awesome. Do you find yourself using this a lot for the venues you're in, or is this just this particular venue?
No, I find myself using it a lot. We live in New Jersey. Our venues are great, but there's a lot of power lines and a lot of, you know, there's a lot of parking lots, and you got to embrace all that stuff. So sometimes you embrace it, and sometimes you embrace it by hiding it.
For sure. Awesome. Love it. All right, let's move on to the next one. This image, another fantastic, gorgeous image. So tell us a little bit about the location of this and what is this on the left-hand side? And are you shooting through something? So kind of talk to us a little bit about that. Is the Lightroom not showing?
Yeah. But I think I know which one you're talking about. So she was wearing this fantastic sparkly navy outfit, and she's really obsessed with like blues and purples. And so when I saw this fountain, I found it otherwise boring. And so I didn't want it to just be like, oh, look, I shot a couple through a fountain. So I wanted her to have her purple rain. And so I set one flash towards me from behind the fountain that was gelled purple. And then another flash was camera right on them, and that was a grid and a sphere. And that was on them. And then there was lights, obviously, from the tree as well. I think it took one or two to get it exactly angled the way I wanted it, because I really wanted you to be able to see that there was like this fountain. But yeah, a color gel. I used all three of my favorite party tricks in one this time.
Awesome. So the fountain is this the purple part? Is that just, I guess, the main part of the fountain, the spouts from the fountain there, and then they're off to the right a little bit, kind of
they're in the back.
It's not quite as.
Yeah, I would say the fountain was equal distance between me and them.
Okay.
So they were pretty far back behind the fountain. I was pretty far ahead of the fountain. The fountain was just like right in the middle. Yeah.
Awesome. And then so you just, to get the fountain to turn purple, did you put the flash? Is it next to you pointing back out, or is it kind of backlighting the water from?
No, it's backlighting the water. So I put it on the, you know how fountains will usually have a rail. So it was on the rail, tilted upwards a little bit. Okay. I'd say like maybe 45 on the rail, but tilted upwards with a purple gel.
Nice. And did you keep it pretty low power? I know a lot of the some of the struggles people have when they first start using gels is how much power to put through the gel to either get that deep saturated color or to kind of get that more light pastel color. I'm guessing you kind of had it at a lower power to kind of get that nice deep color.
Yes, it was fairly low. And I will say when I use color gels, like I want them to have deep color. And so it's almost always you just low power going through it because I want it to feel dark. Purple.
Definitely.
Dark, whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So is this another shot that you knew she loved purple and kind of wanted that moment? So you saw the fountain and it kind of the thought process and creative thinking started going, or is this something you kind of knew was there?
Anytime I see water, I want to backlight it.
Awesome.
Yeah. As soon as I see something falling from the sky or coming up from a fountain and going back down, I'm like, somebody go get a flash. Yeah.
Wonderful. Did you use any kind of color correction gels for the couple, or is that just straight flash and then balance for the flash temperature?
That's balanced for the flash temperature after. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I didn't.
And so
they're just there.
Awesome. Another amazing image. So I think the next one is the one that you say you get a lot of requests for.
Yep.
So talk to me. I love the feel of this image. It's very dramatic, but also just like super regal, which is awesome. Love the way you're able to balance it with the uplighting and the decorations I have with the candles and the drapery. So talk us through this one a little bit for us.
So this is right after a ceremony. We didn't get to do bridal party photos earlier because the poor bridesmaids were not ready on time. But they're super cooperative when they're in trouble. So once posed, I hand held this. I don't recommend hand holding it. It's not a great idea. Especially when you're first learning to do it, I would throw your camera on a tripod. It'll make your life easier in post. But I hand held this. So while I was hand holding it, my assistant went from left to right and he individually lit each bridesmaid. And he has been well trained to always, so it's a grid and the sphere. And he's been well trained to make sure that he's keeping any fall off from going right directly behind the bridesmaid, because then I'm going to lose that part of the fabric. So he goes one by one, flashes each one. And so this one was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 image composite. And then in post, I'll go back and like paint everybody back in.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
So do you have all of them stay in their positions as he's flashing each one? Some people do it differently. They'll have everyone stay and then flash one and then paint them back in. Some people will have them remove themselves once they've been flashed and then do that. So what's your method on this?
No, I have them stay in place. I don't want them to move at all. I tell them to hold their breath. Whatever you're doing, stop. For me, I'd like them to stay right in place. I don't want them to move. I don't want them to talk. They like to talk. And I do remind them that just because they've been flashed doesn't mean they're not in the next one. And so don't like walk around because you could be blocking background I need for a different part of the image.
Right.
Just stay in place, don't move, especially when they're clustered together like this. I think that if they were spread out, there are times where we do it like on stairs where they're spread out, then there's and you're on a tripod, then it's okay maybe for them to walk out of the frame. But when they're clustered together tightly like this, I'd like for them to just stay in one place. Definitely.
So doing images like this with MagMod and before MagMod, talk to me a little bit about the struggles before. Was this something you would have even attempted, or is this something that you didn't even really start attempting until you knew that you could control the light using the modifiers that you use?
I didn't even try this before I could control my light, and I couldn't control my light until I had MagMod. I think that in my mind, I thought I could do stuff like this, and so I may have tried it with like a video light before MagMod, but no, MagMod's the reason I can do stuff like this. Fast too. Like after any Indian ceremony, I am taking somewhere between 25 and 55 formal images. And that takes a long time. And this takes a long time. So for me to have the time to do this and the time to do all of that, I have to be super quick. I can't think about it. I can't overthink anything. And so, yeah, MagMod all the way.
Awesome. No, I love it. So do you find these composites, like what's the largest composite you've done in regards to, looks like a 8-person composite, including the bride. Would you find yourself being able to feel confident doing these if you had even larger people really fast and efficient as well?
Yeah, so I think I've done up to 30 people.
Ooh.
Because my bridesmaids, so right after I took this one, I took another one, and it was the groomsmen and 12 more people. So that one,
Oh,
even
wow.
that one was 21.
Yeah.
And so yeah, as long as I have a grid and a flash and people stay still, I can do this. Even handheld. The second one was also handheld.
Awesome.
But again, I don't recommend other people do it handheld. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a good idea. It's not a good idea. Don't do that. I mean, do it after you've done it for a while.
Definitely. It's not something you should try like the first wedding that I mean, some touch or trial and error. You're not going to really get used to them, but maybe practice a few times with friends
Yeah.
or family
Yeah.
before you try to attempt something like this at a wedding for sure. That's always sage advice.
It's also these kind of
Awesome.
images, they remember that you spent time taking them, so then they look for them.
Mhm.
They don't when it's
Very true.
when it's a regular image, if it didn't work out, it's okay. But you made them freeze and they remember, so they want to know where it is.
It's true. That's very true. When you spend time on an image and you don't include it because it didn't work out the way you thought, then it's almost worse than just having not even attempted the image to begin with, because they're, like you said, they're specifically looking for that image. They don't see it, then they ask you about it, and then you got to go back and be like, well, it didn't quite work out, and then they're still disappointed because they spent all that time when they could potentially have done something else. So I will say, doing these types of shots for myself, I feel more, I mean, I'm confident now, but for someone who's trying, I think being able to use a grid and know that, hey, they have a little more confidence in attempting these images and getting a successful result than trying to use a bare flash or some sort of other modified grid, or, real quickly thrown together something to try to control the light on the day of because they decide they want to try it. So that's one thing I respect and love about the grids as well, is that it gives me the confidence to try some new things, knowing that if I want to hit them with a certain specific amount of light in a certain spot, that I can do some trial and error, and for the most part work through it and get a usable result, which is great.
Absolutely. I also do this same technique for reception setups. I shoot some elaborate reception setups, and so I'll do the same light painting basically for that as well.
So do you normally use a tripod, or do you normally always handhold these?
I handhold them.
Oh, well, no, tell us a little bit. So tell us about your technique, because being able to handhold, do you find yourself off a little bit with a little bit of the alignments, or do you have to do some more adjustments, or are you pretty?
So there's a trick to that. In Photoshop, there's an auto align layers function. And so the only thing is, if you move too much, you're going to lose space. And so you can't. And so, I mean, it's not a great idea in the first place to handhold stuff. You definitely, especially when you're doing a composite, because you miss one thing and the whole image is shot. So it's not the best idea. But it can be done. And then you just go into Photoshop and ask it to align the layers for you, and you'll see all, yeah. Chaos.
So with this particular shot, you're at 2.8, which is, it's decently shallow, not super shallow. So are you focusing on just the bride, and that's where you keep your focus and you keep everything still, or are you readjusting your focus so each person is focused as you're shooting?
No, I keep it on. So I'll focus on the bride and everybody else is whatever. 2.8, I probably should have been closer to 4, but I wanted it to have this like soft dramatic look, and that was working for me, so I left it alone. But I will, even whatever after I'm at, I'll focus on the bride, and then I will brace myself basically, and I will also not breathe other than when I say next, and I'll just keep clicking through, and I yell next really loud so my assistant knows to keep moving.
Awesome. I'm just imagining you staying really still with your camera, yelling next. It's a funny image in my head. Next.
Yeah. The guests at the wedding think I'm pretty hilarious too.
Awesome. So this next image is one of my absolute favorites of yours. I remember when you had posted it and you kind of told a little bit of a story about it. This image just is mind-boggling. It blows my mind. It's amazing. So tell us a little bit about this image and the story behind it, and how you kind of envisioned it and ended up bringing this to fruition and kind of completing the bride and groom's request for this?
So their theme for their wedding was Sky Full of Stars. And they really wanted everything to just feel like a starry night everywhere, the floor, the ceiling, the walls. So behind they had the starry backdrop behind them, and then their dance floor was a black dance floor that was, lit up. But when I may have intervened a little bit here, but when the decorator was decorating, like putting together the decor, he almost put white paneling in the front of the stage. And luckily I have a really good relationship with him. And so I yelled from across the room and was like, "Don't do white." So he changed it to black, which, as you can see, makes way more sense for a starry night theme.
Definitely.
And I, she just wanted drama and to feel glamorous. And so this is literally as simple, and you have to be able to control your light on this because it's a black dance floor, but any flash on that and you ruin it. Like,
definitely.
Any spill of light on that dance floor and it's no fun at all. And any spill on the wall and it's no fun at all. So this was a grid and a sphere. And yeah, and just so you know, I took a bridal party shot that looks just like this, but with like 18 people.
That's amazing. So is this just one light for each of them? So you're lighting them both with one light with the grid and the sphere?
Yep, that's it. Just one light.
Or did you? Nice.
Camera right.
And this is a perfect example of how the grid helps control the light, and then the bounce or the sphere kind of gives you a nice little fall off around the edge of her dress.
Yeah.
It keeps it from spilling onto the dance floor.
Without the sphere.
How many shots did it take you to get your final result?
2 or 3. Without the sphere, it was just a little too jagged. And so the sphere really made it feel, I don't know, like the moon is what's shining down on them. And it's like soft and perfect. And 2 or 3. I think we just adjusted the light once or twice to make sure that it was completely off the floor. And once it was completely off the floor, we were set. I have them.
Is your assistant just?
I have them look at the assistant so they don't go completely blind.
Definitely.
So, but they were patient. But yeah, 2 or 3. Was my assistant? Sorry, you were asking me.
Yeah, is he just basically kind of holding it up above, kind of hitting them down higher, or is he holding a stand like a monopod with the light on it?
He's got a monopod, and he's pretty high, and then towards them.
Okay.
Yeah. So like it's definitely out of the camera, but it was, if I had panned upwards, you would have seen the flash. Does that make sense? Fairly close.
Definitely. Yeah. So the flash is kind of just out of frame.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But not out of frame, like to the right side of the frame, but to the right and above.
And above.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm sure the bride and groom, if they haven't seen this already, are super thrilled with it.
They love it. They haven't seen the rest of their photos yet. That's next week.
No, I love this image. It's definitely one of my top favorite images, which is awesome. Perfect. Cool. So this is another recent image, and I know discussing this image with you, you kind of mentioned that it was kind of a happy accident. So talk to us a little bit about that. What you were going for originally, what kind of happened, and then why you took it the way you went because of what happened.
So I shoot in AV mode when I'm not shooting with flash, because I use my exposure compensation pretty generously. But I was in AV mode. I'd put on my trigger. I had my assistant. My assistant is on the other side of the pillar that they're kind of under a tunnel kind of thing. And so my assistant's in there with them. You just can't see him. And he was already holding the flash on them. And I went to pick up my camera to get it out of AV mode. And when I did that, I hit it by mistake. And then I looked at the screen and I saw the colors. It wasn't, the worm wasn't in it, but we'll get to that. I saw the streak. And as soon as I saw the streak and I saw that they were lit, it was out of focus, obviously, because it came from my hip. Instead of doing what I had planned was to shoot them with the rest of the building. The rest of the building is covered in ivy and it's gorgeous. And that's what I had intended. But it was this is definitely the better option. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, I have to refine this. And so I refined it. I went into manual. I focused on them. I panned again. And then in post, I had to warm them up because they're not blue. And in warming them up, I ended up with this crazy rainbow that makes me so happy.
No, that's awesome. So what was creating the colors from the rainbow? What was it lights on the building or?
That's not even lights on the building. That's right before sunset. The campus that we were on it just feels really blue. Like if you look around, everything's just like a bluer color. It's just really cool. And that's just how the shot, like that's what those are campus buildings lit by sunlight, but at like 6:30 and sunset is at like 6:25.
Wow.
So
awesome.
Yeah, there were no.
So this is just after sunset. So it's still ideally it's still pretty light, not like bright, but still pretty light. And so I'm guessing and this is a great example of how you can use your settings to kind of kill off the ambient and really control the scene so that you get what you want. I'm sure your ISO was probably fairly high.
Like 100, maybe.
Yep, 100. Yep.
Yeah.
And 2.0 and 1/8. So, which is awesome. And then that 1/8 is what allowed you to drag the shutter. So how many times did you have to, did you kind of do that dragging to get the effect you wanted? Was it pretty quick, or it was again just a couple shots until you decided it was good?
I think it was like my second one.
Just because you're awesome.
I get lucky. It's just luck sometimes. Sometimes it's because I know what I'm doing. No, this was as soon as I saw the mistake, I knew what I could intentionally do with it, and that was. Yeah, sometimes you got to really embrace a happy accident and just improve upon it, and that's what happened here.
Awesome. So you said you warmed them up in post. Was that because you just didn't want to take the time? You knew what you wanted to get. You were just trying to get it, and you could fix it later. I'm sure you could have easily have warmed them up by throwing a gel on the flash, which would have potentially got them to where you want them to warmth wise, and still created the kind of colors behind there. Or is that just something that your mind works? The fact that I'll create this and then kind of massage it after the fact to kind of create what I want after the fact.
I think my brain at that point was thinking like, I'll just fix that. Like they don't need to look like Smurfs. I'll fix them later. I was just so excited to see the like blues and greens on one side that I didn't really obsess over them. But I am in this situation. Usually I should and would put on some CTO and fix them because I don't like doing. Not because I'm lazy, except that I'm lazy. I don't like having to do like extra post-processing work. Like I like for things to be super simple and just to like tweak and be done with when it comes to post. But in this situation, I'm glad I didn't, because the purples and oranges on the right wouldn't have happened if I wasn't using a linear gradient to warm them up. So I'm really happy I went that way this time.
No, I completely agree. And it's using the tools you have at hand and then knowing how to massage and fine tune the results you get from those tools after the fact, which is part of being a creative. And it's nice to be able to have tools that allow you to create images like this, knowing that you can do some minor tweaks later to really kind of bring the full potential out of the image. With trying to use a bare flash, I think you kind of like you said earlier, one of your frustrations was all the spill you would get, and I think there definitely would have been a lot of spill. You wouldn't have got the light just on their face. It would have been a little more covering their entire bodies. And again, you could probably adjust, with a brush in Lightroom if you wanted to, but as myself, I know that I don't want to spend that much time doing stuff if I don't have to. So knowing that I can put the light where I want it and have the fall off go where I want it just saves me time, and which allows me to do more things other than sitting in front of a computer all day long. So
completely.
Awesome.
I don't want to be later. I want to just, if I can, sometimes we'll have to double grid things. It's fine. I'd rather spend the 2 minutes tweaking it while we're shooting it and getting it where we want it to be than dodging and burning it later.
Completely agree. So, Awesome. Well, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to see if there's some questions and talk a little bit more about some things you've got coming up for yourself. And if you want, why don't you tell everyone your IG? So if anyone wants to follow you to get inspired and just kind of see some more amazing work from you, they can follow you on IG and your Facebook page too, if you don't mind.
So my Instagram is just Charmi Pena, Pena, CharmiPena, and my Facebook page is just Charmi Pena Photography.
Awesome, perfect. And so you're speaking also coming up in this January, is that right?
I am. I'm going to be at Mystic.
Is this your first time speaking?
Yeah. Well, so I'm doing a little something with Fearless and with Tamaya Colvin beforehand also. But it'll be my first standing up there by myself, giving a photo TED Talk kind of thing. I'm talking about Indian weddings and why cultural literacy is really important if you want to shoot weddings that are different than your sphere. And so we're going to go through a lot of what happens in Indian weddings. And so I talk a little bit about how to pronounce my name and why learning to pronounce your clients' names is really important. But yeah, it's about Indian weddings. I'm super excited about it. And then I'm also speaking at Inspire a couple months later.
Awesome. That's great. So if any of you guys are going to be a Mystic, make sure you find Charmi. She's an awesome person. She's super friendly, super helpful. You learn a lot of stuff from her. Same thing if you guys are going to go to Inspire, she'll be there as well. So make sure you search her out and just give her some love. She's super amazing. And Charmi, again, I can't thank you enough for being on here with us today. I'm super excited. Like I said, I've been excited for the last couple of months to talk to you and pick your brain and to see how you create some of these amazing images that you keep posting. And I'm glad we got to share that knowledge with the members today. And I'm sure if it's okay with you, I'm sure you'll probably get some questions and maybe after the fact. And if they like to reach out to you, if that's okay,
Yep, I'm around. Thank you so much for
don't bombard her with 150 messages. She's a busy woman, but I'm sure she'll find some answers if you need some. And she's always in here in the community. So if you have a specific question for her, you can tag her, and I'm sure she'll answer if she's able. But again, Charmi, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and look forward to having you on again and seeing you soon.